r/AskReddit by Redmond ETS. What did you find out after a first date that was a deal breaker? She said she used heroin, but unlike most people, she could do it safely. I had a girl say she was a responsible meth user. And my first thought was, I don't think you can put those words together like that. She was married. We met at a bar and left together. Went and had dinner, saw a movie, and she spent the night. The next morning she says, I wonder if my husband figured out I didn't come home. Then she asked me for a ride to work and I got a ticket because she didn't wear her seatbelt. On the surface, he was a lawyer with an Ivy League degree. Then just one layer deep, he had 6 kids with 5 different women. One of his exes hated him so much he took their kids to Germany to get away from him. And the kicker? His youngest was 6 months old and he was sleeping on his ex's couch. The date went well, we just did the typical coffee and chat, then decided to go back to my place for a movie. As soon as we walked in the door he tried to shove his tongue down my throat, no warning. I backed away because he caught me off guard. He asked to use my bathroom. I thought more to escape embarrassment and to start over. He walked out completely naked, crawled onto my bed and spread his ass cheeks, asking me to eat his ass and talking about inviting his friends over for an orgy. I was so confused because while we were messaging I asked him about sex, like what he was into and looking for, and he said he didn't want to have sex on our first date. That he had restraining orders against him from not 1, but 2 exes. Also asked if he could move in with me on the first date. Met up for drinks and she started telling me about how she thought I'd get along with her brother. After a couple of drinks, we end up at the bar where her brother worked. Hell of a guy. We kept playing hair metal on the jukebox and drinking beers. She went from saying I would get along with her brother to I remind her of her brother. The more she drank, the more she said it. We ended up making out and she started repeating the shit about her brother while rubbing my crotch. I made sure she got home safe, but that shit creeped me out so much that I never spoke to her again. My date kept trying to braid my hair, lol. At first, it seemed weird, but not like a deal breaker, but then he kept asking. The first time he asked, we were walking through the park, and I was telling a story, but he interrupted me, asking, can I please braid your hair? I laughed, politely said no, and continued talking, but he kept interrupting, asking to braid my hair. I asked why, but all he said was, I just want to braid it, and kept reaching for my head. I swatted his hand away a few times, and when that didn't work, I told him I was ready to go home. It was so creepy. It was during the first date, he talked shit to a harmless homeless woman. I was close to home and dismissed myself immediately. I was on my second date with a guy and our date was at a place you had to valet your car, so to save money, we drove together. It was a 10-minute drive to the place from my house and we were very early, so there was no reason to rush. We were at an intersection waiting on a red light in which an old man was crossing. The light turned green but he was still a few feet from the curb and in front of our car. The guy rolled my window down and screamed over me, out my open window, go a little faster you old frick and maybe I wouldn't think about running you over, old bitch. I immediately told him to pull over and I got the hell out of there. He referred to every woman in his life as a cunt. His ex-wife. His co-workers. His son's girlfriend. The ladies he came across at work. Correction officer. He must have used it 12 times in a 2-hour conversation. I think that's more than I've heard that word used in conversation in the previous 20 years combined. He was not British. There was no cultural slang going on. It was very off-putting. He lost a pile of money in crypto and NFTs, but still tried to convince me to get my money into it. He forgot to mention his 3 kids. Also, in the same breath said his ex was a psycho. When I questioned why he hadn't mentioned his kids before, he said it didn't matter because they lived full time with their mom. I have divorced parents. Guess how I reacted? Another one kept talking about how he wanted 5 kids but didn't want to get married. I said that I wasn't down, sorry. He countered with, but Europeans do it all the time. I was sitting there like, who the F sitting at this table is European? Because I sure as hell am not. I don't know why it's always about some kid related issue. Maybe because they find out I work with children so they think I'm like a Duggar and are willing to accept a gaggle of other people's children. Not happening. Technically this was after a second date, but I was so impressed that he'd treated me and the person who introduced us to sushi. I was 18 and he was 27, so I guess it just impressed me because most 18-year-olds can't just treat a group to sushi. But then he let slip that he'd paid for it all with his mom's credit card. He didn't have a job. Recovering addict. And his mom's credit cards were financing his whole life. So, it was a deal breaker. He told me that he couldn't wait to have kids with me and that he had picked out our kids' names. When I told him that this was our first date and I wasn't sure about kids and that this was a super creepy thing to say to me, he insisted it was my duty as a woman and that it would make me very happy. Yeah, there was no second date. They lied about their age. Said they were younger than they were to get me on the date. I wouldn't have cared about their age, but I did care about the lie. I had one that lied about his height by a few inches. His actual height was fine, but if he'd lie about something so ridiculously obvious at first sight, he'd lie about everything. I had one guy claim 5'10" on the app but was shorter than me, 5'6", even though I was wearing flats. He pointed out that I was taller than him and accused me of lying. I've got news for you, dude. He kept telling me what to do. It seemed innocent at first, but after the third or fourth time, nah, not doing this again. He told me his ex has like 7 multiple personalities, also told me their names and ages. I might have been okay with him, but he has an 8-year-old son with her, so she's going to be in his life for a while. I don't need the drama. That's all, folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.